Welcome back, friends. We are into 14th module now, and we'll be discussing about. We'll continue discussing about A star. We'll talk about admissibility of A star, and then there are two extensions we'll be talking about. One is called agenda driven system, and other is called end-OR graphs. In the admissibility, we have already seen that if the algorithm uses a heuristic function which is admissible, the algorithm itself becomes admissible. That means it's guaranteed to give us an optimal solution. So, we will be talking about that admissibility first, and we have already seen that S dash is an estimate. So, if that estimate is consistently underestimate the actual value, the heuristic function is said to be admissible. So, that is the first thing that we are going to see in this particular module, and we are going to look at both components G and S dash, how and when will you vary their value, and what is the effect on the search process if you vary those. So, that is what we are going to talk about, and we are in the end we will be discussing about agendas and end-OR graphs. We will begin with admissibility. Okay. The admissibility is a characteristic of an algorithm to find an optimal solution. If A star is optimal, the solution is optimal. It does not exist any path which has lesser cost than what we propose. Okay. So, we guarantee that the path that we provide is least cost or the best path. And we have already said if A star heuristic is admissible, then the A star is admissible. In fact, there are few other things. In fact, I am not talking about the complete case, but this is generally the case. I am avoiding some discussion which requires some mathematical points to be discussed. I would like to avoid such, so I am not going to discuss that. But what does that mean, the admissible? The point is, for all x belongs to that number of nodes, the heuristic value, the h dash x, is always less than or equal to h dash. For all values of x, if h dash x is less than h x, we call the h to be an optimal function. Now, let us try to see what if S dash overestimates h. Now, I have a slide animation on PPT. So, you can run that PPT and see. So, A has two children, C and B. C is 7 plus 1. Now, when I say 7 plus 1 or 7 comma 1 sometimes, one is G, one is H. Now, looking at the context, you can decide what is G, what is H. In this case, I have purposefully reversed the order. 7 is H and 1 is G. So, sometimes it is done this way. So, that is why I have done this. Okay. So, which is better? Obviously, B is better because 5 plus 1 6 hopes away. In fact, C is a shorter route. We are overestimating. We say that 7, but it is nearer, and B is, when we say B is 5, actually it is nearer. So, when we explore B, it has only one child called D, and it says that it is 4 hopes away. Now, we are all adding G. Okay. So, we are all adding 1. So, 4 plus 2 6. Then E is 3 plus 3, and then so we are not actually we say that it is 3 hopes away, but the next one is the solution called G. We reach there. Now, you can see that at any point of time when we explore B, it is 6 compared to 7, it is 8. So, it is B is better. When we explore D, it is 6 compared to C, 8, it was better. When we explored E, 3 plus 3 was 6, which again was better to C. And we have got a child called G. Whatever the value is, we have got through that using a longer path. In fact, though C says that G is 7 hopes away, actually is only 1 hope away. So, that overestimation costed us. So, we got the solution, but not the optimal solution. That is the problem. What if there is an underestimation? Now, let us try to see a similar case. We start from A, we had two children, B and C. B is 1 4, C is 1 5. Obviously, B is better. So, we explore, we have a D. Okay. So, that D is 2 4. Now, you can see that we are underestimating. In the beginning, it says that 4 hops away, but after 1 hop, it still says 4 hops away. Obviously, our estimation is underestimating the actual value. So, it is 2 4, 3 4. We are not improving our estimate. Every time we move ahead, we find that it is further than we expected. At this point of time, 4 plus 3 becomes 7. And what we do is we explore C now. It says 2 4. Now we are improving. 2 4 is same as 6. So, we explore it further. 3 3, which is again better than E, and J, which is again better, and we reach to N, which is again, you can see that G value is increasing, the H dash value is decreasing, the total is remaining the same. We reach to K, which is 7, which is same as E. Okay. So, we prefer K. One of them is to be preferred. So, we prefer K and we get G. Now, what happened here? Actually, though we chose a wrong path in the beginning, because we are underestimating, what happens is at some or the other point of time, our total value, when we are consistently underestimating, the next node's value will always increase. So, before we reach to the final node, we will be able to find at some point of time that the value is increasing compared to the right path. In this case, AC was the right path, but we chose AB, which was because it looks better. Because we are underestimating, while we travel forward and reach E, by the time we realize that path to C is better, and then we started traveling, and we have seen that that path look consistently promising compared to E, and we get to the right solution. What if one of the node has more value than 8? We'll explore, we would have explored E again, and because it is longer, obviously at some or the other point of time before we reach G, that value will become higher and we'll again start processing from the right path. Now, though this sounds simple, this is definitely simple, but this is very, very interesting also, because the simple prerequisite makes this acceptable and it makes the algorithm admissible. That means once we do this, we are guaranteed to get the optimal solution. Okay, looking at, if we explore this further, you can see that H and O, okay, H will be 7 and O will be 8. You can see that that path was longer, actually longer. So, even if we have got some other value which is more, you can see that we would have come back to E and traversed H and O, we probably got 8 and again gone back to the previous node. Okay, so the best path. So, we may need to switch over from one path to the other, but we will always get the best path. Okay, and that is the power of underestimation. Let us take one example of a puzzle called 8 puzzle. Now, this puzzle is, you probably have seen that puzzle a few times. Now, the left hand side is the initial state, the right hand side is the final state. They look quite similar apart from 2 tiles. Okay. Instead of 6, we have 8. Instead of 8, we have 3 tiles. Instead of 5, we have 7. You can see that there are 3 tiles which are at the incorrect position, the rest are there. Now, the problem is that from the initial stage, you will have to reach to the final state. Okay. So, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 5, 7, you would like to reach to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what you want. Now, how do you do it? You define rules. We've already seen some other cases before. I'm not going to define rules right now. You may take that thing as an exercise, because there are only 4 rules to be defined: tile moving up, tile moving down, tile moving left and right. So, 4 rules are to be written. So, once you write, and in fact, you don't need to move in tile. There is only one thing which moves in true sense, is the empty space. There is only one empty space that is moving, and the other tiles move accordingly. So, if you write just that rule, you can continue. Okay, that is the hint. Now, you choose a heuristic, number of tiles which are out of place. Now, in the previous that thing, you know that there are 3 tiles which are out of place. But then how many moves you need to reach to a place? If it is possible, then you only need to move 3 tiles to reach to a final. In this case, it is not. But the minimum value is 3. Maximum value is much more. So, number of tiles that you need to, they are out of place, is an excellent admissible heuristic. What does that mean? That is the minimum value, and the actual value is almost always going to be higher than that. So, we are underestimating. So, this is an example of admissible heuristic function. In the final node, you can see that there is one more thing, and earlier we used to say that we'll get a heuristic value which is better than others. Here we are actually going in the other direction. In the final case, there is no tile which is out of place, so that is value 0, and that is what we like to achieve. So, we want to achieve a heuristic value to be 0. So, that is the difference, and we always start with a heuristic value which is positive. So, what we want to do is to go down from some positive value to 0. But is this a good heuristic function? It is admissible. So, if you use this function and use this to traverse the search space generated for this puzzle, you are guaranteed to get an optimal solution. But this thing again, is it an optimal solution? Is it the best heuristic function? Remember our discussion about local and global heuristic functions. This function, however good it looks like, is a local heuristic function. It does not describe the entire situation, and that is why it is not very good. Okay. Let us look at the example shown in the handout as well as this thing. Okay, there is one case 1, 2, 3, 7, 4, 5, 8, 6. Now, this is a very typical case where we need to reach to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 case. Now, you can see that there are 3 children. Okay, one which moves 1 down, the other one moves 7 here, and the third one moves 5 up. Okay. So, there are 3 moves possible, and that's why there are 3 children. If you apply heuristic, number of tiles out of place, the rightmost state 1, 2, 3, 7 space 4, 5, 8, 6 seems great, because only 4 tiles are out of place. So, okay, and second one also is 4. So, we assume that is good, and we explore. Now, you can see that we are actually using breadth first right now, but if you choose the best, you actually will choose either the second or the third one. But you can see that admissibility, the second child will have 1 if you pick up either of them, because they are 4. So, you pick up second or third children. If you pick up the second children, what you get is 1 child with heuristic value is 3. So, you proceed further and you get something. Okay. If you traverse right and you get 3 and 4, you can see that we are working efficiently. We are not leading anywhere. If you just look at this, we are not leading anywhere. We are exploring, but we are not getting anywhere. Obviously, the path that the heuristic that we are using is not very good. Though it is admissible, it is not very good. It is not leading us to any solution. Okay. You may be interested in finding out what's the better heuristic for this particular case. What is the global heuristic for this case? One good solution is provided by a book by Nielsen and Nielsen. I am not going to talk about that because it again requires a lot of explanation, but it is possible to have a global heuristic function. The point here is that an admissible function may not be a very good function. So, that is the other problem. So, what you need to do if you find that admissible function is not very good, the very theorem which says that when the heuristic function is admissible, we get an optimal solution, has a corollary which is described in the slide next. It says that if S dash rarely overestimates H by a small margin delta, it not consistently underestimating, sometimes it is overestimate by some very small value delta, then you can still get a solution which is far from delta from the optimal solution. Okay. So, it is rarely different, it is maximum amount of delta in rare case. Okay. So, what does that mean? We will get a suboptimal solution, but good enough. Now, remember, humans are really good in finding solutions, but many a times they do not find optimal solutions, but they do not need optimal solutions. I gave few examples, like suppose if I want to go to a restaurant, I won't pick up the best restaurant in the world, the best restaurant of Ahmedabad. I will just pick up, I say that where I can find good Punjabi food, I will go, and that's the only requirement. I am not going to go for the best restaurant which can give me the best food. Okay. So, point is, I am happy with suboptimal solution. Okay. We will just have minimal set of constraints satisfied, I am happy. The same thing is here. So, we will, though this is great, the optimal solution, we get an admissible heuristic function which is good enough, and that is best, we will get an optimal solution. But in alternate way, in general case, is to get a suboptimal solution using a better heuristic function which can yield result better, faster, and without much of a trouble. Let it be little suboptimal, not all that admissible. It overestimates sometimes the heuristic function that you use, it overestimating it by a rare margin, and it's just fine. What is the impact of G? The impact of G is remember the case that we have taken in the previous model. If you just use 1, we'll just continue incrementing. If you use actual value, it's little more fluctuating. It's just one dimension. If you keep Z as 0, it's basically a best first search algorithm. It says that how far the goal is from the current node, and you just choose the best node which is nearest to the goal node. Now, you may pick up G as 0 when you want it that way. For example, in networking there is something called Anycasting. IP version 6, which is the latest IP solution, implements this thing, Anycasting. In this Anycasting, what they do is they send a request to multiple servers, and any one of these servers should respond back. Now, if you using this, you are just interested in finding a server. Now, from this node, whoever is nearer should respond me back. I am not bothered how far I am from the server, the client node, because that does not make any sense. Okay, in this case, I want the quickest answer back. The similar case is while the vehicle is traveling. For example, I am driving a car, and I from A I reach to B, then C, then D. Now, when I reach D, it says that fine, the path from A to Z is better. Now, I don't want to go back to A and then start traversing again. They'll add a lot of additional delay. I want to find out best path from D only. Okay, I have talked about a lot of cases where we want to have optimal path from one a node A to B, and I talked about alternate routes and switching over and all that. You may be surprised that am I contradicting with myself? I am not. Please understand there are two different cases. Case number one is about planning. I am still at A and I am finding out the best route to Z. Okay, there are two different cases. One is where I am still at A and I am trying to find out the best route to Z. I am planning, I have not started traveling. I can actually decide any path and I can always backtrack to any previous node because I am not actually traveling, I am just planning. So, A to B, B to C and C to D, and then come back and then start A to some other path, absolutely fine. When I am actually traveling, I can't keep the G value as other than 0. Okay, so there are two things. So, if I am planning, I can keep G value as actual value, but I am traveling, actually traveling. The best method is to keep G as 0 and then estimate how far is the goal node from the current node. Okay, so that's important. So, G value is kept as 0 in this case. Anycasting I have already talked about. Is G is 1, it's also quite useful for cases like the routing. If you know a bit about networking, every router is connected to every other router in this world by some links, and a router to router link is usually denoted as one hop in routing table, and it is never using other methods. Okay, sometimes it uses, but in most cases a router to router connection is considered to be a one hop, and it is quite surprising. Sometimes router which are part of the same building, and sometimes routers are connected to a router across the continent via satellite, the links are considered to be same. So, in that case keeping G as 1 can be a good solution, but in most other real world cases G value should be accepted, used as the real value. And in real world case sometimes it is very challenging also to choose the right value of G. For example, CT. In case of CT, between any two nodes, if you pick up G as the time to travel, or the distance, or the traffic, the amount of traffic, or even and using which you calculate that G value. Remember, this G value also is going to get dynamic in case of CT, because for example, in the afternoon the road is pretty empty and traffic jam is almost non-existent, but at the time of office hours, rush hours is going to be very different. So, G value also is getting dynamic. So, in true real world cases there are multiple options available for G, and that also might vary over a period of time. So, point is, in case of real world situation, G calculation of G can itself be a challenging issue. What is the impact of S dash? If S dash is a very good estimate, okay, so if S dash says that the goal node is 5 hops away and it is actually 5 hops away, when S dash says that the goal node is 20 hops away and is actually 20 hops away, is great. In fact, in that case we are not searching actually, we are just finding our path. We do not need to look at alternate path, because every time a node which says that I have the shortest path, it has the shortest path. We do not need to look at any other children. So, that is the best solution, but that hardly is the case in real world. What if the S dash value is 0? When the S dash value is 0, we are just looking at the value of G, the total amount of distance that we have travelled, and if G is 1, it is basically a breadth first search, because you start with a root node, you traverse to all children, they are all at 1. Now, that is breadth first search, and then level 2, then level 3, they are all, this is an exact example of a breadth first search. So, if you say G is equal to 1, S dash equal to 0 is a breadth first search. If G value is actual, then it is different, little different than breadth first, but it is quite near to it. When G is also 0, S dash is also 0, what is it? You just, because G plus S dash everywhere is 0, so you can pick up any node and explore. Remember, this is something we have already seen, this is called generate and test. You just pick up a node from the search space at random, check if it is a solution, if it is so quit, otherwise not. So, that is this thing, the G plus S dash case, which is 0, then nothing is to be done. One more point is how the A star this thing can be implemented. There are many ways, in fact Java, C++ are popularly used, but Python is improving. In fact, a lot of people try using Python to implement this thing, A star. Now, so far so good, A star is an excellent algorithm and used, but then there is a catch. If there is a node which has more than one parent, does it make any difference here? In A star there is no difference. For example, you can reach to C through A, B and then C, and then A, D and C. What difference does that make? That doesn't make any difference. But in some cases, that does. Let us take an example of an automated electrician. There is a bulb which is not turning on, and the algorithm is designed with a problem and possible alternatives to look for, because there is a problem, you should look for something, and then again you look for something. When bulb not turning on, there is possibility that current is absent, there is a wire problem, there is a socket problem. Now, they find one more thing, current is absent at intermediary. That clearly means there is one of the reason for that current being absent at intermediary, the current is not present because of that. Now, there are two parent for this current absent. One is something that bulb is not turning on. The second one, intermediary. Now, there are two indications about bulb not turning on. Two parents. Does it make a difference? Yes. For an electrician, you would choose that first because that is most probable. It does make a difference. Now, that kind of a situation cannot be handled in A-star because you don't do that. Once that is done, the next slide talks about the case. In this case, we need, when there is a multiple parent, you need to make sure that those children will get they need to be explored before others. In fact, what you need to do is to add something called a priority. Multiple parents, every parent adds some justification, and the total justification of every child is to be calculated. It's apart from G and H. It's not only G, but G is also divided into two parts now based on the justification. Okay, if there are multiple parents, the amount of justification increases and the G value increases as well, and it is more optimal. Okay, you can, when there are more that thing, you can say that G value is decreased. Okay, it is 1 minus total justification, you may take it up that way. So, point is that particular node is more important for us to look at. We need other algorithm. A-star cannot work. So, we need that the algorithm is called agenda driven search, and that agenda driven search usually deploys this. It picks up every task that is to be done. For the nodes, we remember we keep that unexplored nodes and explored nodes, and store that G plus H dash value and pick up the one which is most optimal, okay, looking at the current situation. Here also the task, this is called task in the agenda driven system. The tasks are listed priority wise, and the top priority task is picked up. If there are multiple children, we see if there are these children already have some other parents, and if it is, total justification is calculated, and based on that their priority is decided and inserted back again in the list, and again the top priority thing is picked up. An example is like doctor who picks up the most probable disease first. Why? Because when doctor looks at the patient, it finds that there are few things. Patient looks weakened and also complains about fever and cold. So, there are more than one indicators of malaria. So, he would choose malaria first. And also there are other indicators like season and the place where the person lives and all that. So, there are multiple parents which indicate that then that particular thing, because the justification to that particular thing is very high, and because it has to confirm that it is malaria. So, what does it do? It picks up, it generates the subtask called blood test, and that blood test, because the justification, the total justification is so high that when blood test is a new task, it is inserted in the top because it is the highest priority job, and then the doctor says that this is to be done, you will have to get the blood test done. There are other examples. For example, in a speech recognition or natural language understanding system, you are looking at a statement and encountered a word called bank. Now, that bank may be one of the two different things, a river bank and a financial institute. So, you have, okay, but then there is one more indication, this talking about money somewhere later. That is more likely. Now, you have two parents. Now, two parents are pointing to the financial institute, one parent is pointing to the river bank. Obviously, the justification to the financial institute is larger. So, in the speech recognition system or the natural language recognition system, you will prefer that interpretation before the other. And same case with malaria, which is shown on the next slide. Okay, fever or alternate days and weakness both point to malaria, while the viral infection and typhoid also possible when you have weakness, but then there are two parents pointing to malaria. So, we will choose that first. One more example is organizing a conference. When you organize a conference, you manage, there are a lot of children, value management and food arrangement and participation management. In that case, the first child which is inserted is called organizing a conference. Subtask are venue management, food management, participation management, And then in case of inviting papers, reviewing are part of research paper management, and so on and so forth. So once you go through that, you may find a task which is also has something to do with the earlier. For example, booking a hall. Booking a hall requires you to figure out what will be the strength of the audience. For that, you will have to look at the venue management. Obviously involves this, but then participation management also involves this. So you will have to find out how many participants are going to come, and the venue management also requires the hall to be fixed. So when you find that there is a task which has multiple parents, obviously that bubbles up to the top, and it will be the highest priority job. So what you do is usually you pick up that job first and book your hall first. Okay, so that's how the agenda driven system is working. They also need, in fact, there are few additional things required in agenda driven systems. Every task is to be divided into subtask once in a while, and every task again maybe a subtask also further divided. Every task will add a justification when it generates a children. And when you have a multiple parent, it makes a lot of sense in this case, because that will add to the level of justification and improves the priority, and agenda is always stored based on the priority. But then sometimes more than one indicators are not all that important. For example, if you find that battery is weak and also light is not turning on for your car, then whenever this one thing happens, the other will surely happen. So this too does not add significant justification. So that is one thing. The second is, sometimes there are two parents, but one of them is very, very strong. For example, having a fever is one and blood report positive is the other. So blood report positive is a strong justification. So agenda driven system should consider that more important. So that justification value or the weight is much higher. One more thing, in A star algorithm, every solution is a single node. In some cases it is not. One typical example is shown on the handout as well as the slide. We have a denial of service attack is from the intrusion detection domain. It can be of two reasons. One is network protocol problem and the database server problem. For the database server problem, both primary and secondary database servers have to be down. Okay. So if both of them are down, there is a database server problem. So here, if you draw this graph, the arc CD and CE, they are not independent arcs. They have to appear together for a solution. Those arcs are known as AND arc, which requires both the solutions to be true for the parent to be true. Unlike the case, the parent case, where A is true, if B is true or C is true, then A is true. Okay, that is called OR arc. While when D is true and E is true, then C is true, then it is called AND arc. Whenever such a situation arises, this graph is known as AND OR graph. In conventional A star will not be in a position to handle it. Why? Because it assumes every branch to be an independent separate, and a solution is assumed to be a single node. Here what we need is a different algorithm, and that algorithm is known as problems reduction algorithm. It's basically nothing else but extension of A star algorithm, which whenever there is an AND arc, it considers that to be a single arc, and G plus S of all solutions are added together to get the value of that particular branch. Okay, we will not proceed with this further, and AND OR, you will find a lot of other discussion about AND OR graphs in literature. That will conclude this particular module. In this particular module, we have seen A star, how we can get admissible function for A star algorithm, and we have also seen admissibility is not the only important criteria, the other criteria is also important. So sometimes suboptimal functions are preferred over the optimal functions. We have also seen how agenda driven system works, and also AND OR graphs and the problem reduction system, which can handle those cases well. With that, we will conclude. Thank you.